Hello, and welcome to Gospel Gleanings for this Sunday, March the 21st, 2026. My brothers and sisters, on this fifth Sunday of Lent, we hear from the Gospel of John, chapter 11, verses 1 through 45. Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, Master, the one you love is ill. When Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, Let us go back to Judea. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. He said this and then told them, Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him. So the disciples said to him, Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved. But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him. So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go to die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, The teacher is here and is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Sir, come and see. And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so this man would not have died? So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, Untie him and let him go. Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. My brothers and sisters, There is a story about an elementary school that once held what they called Family Day. Parents and grandparents were invited to visit the school, and as you might imagine, the hallways were full of children and families moving in every direction. To make the day special, each of the younger children received a bright green balloon filled with helium that they tied on their wrist. So all through the school, you could see these little ones running down the hallways with balloons floating behind them. One little girl, whose name was Mary, was especially excited because her father had come to visit. She was running down the hallway to find him, pulling that bright green balloon along behind her. But as she ran past the cubbies along the hallway wall, the balloon caught on one of the metal cubbies, and suddenly, and as you can imagine, that bright helium-filled green balloon popped. And there it laid on the ground, a wet piece of forlorn rubber. And you could see the tears beginning to well up in her eyes. But then something beautiful happened. She bent down, picked up that wet piece of rubber, ran over to her father, handed it to him, and simply said, "Daddy, fix it for me." My brothers and sisters, that little story says something very powerful about the human heart. Because many times in life we feel that like that wet piece of rubber lying on the schoolhouse floor. Because of trials or tribulations or whatever the difficulty is, sometimes it feels like our whole world has burst. And in those moments, we turn to God and say, "Father, Abba, fix it." That is exactly the situation we encounter in our gospel this weekend with Martha, Mary, and her brother Lazarus. Lazarus becomes seriously ill, and the sisters send word to Jesus because they know he has the power to heal. But Jesus does not arrive right away, and by the time he comes, Lazarus has already died. Martha goes out to meet Jesus and says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." In other words, "Jesus, where were you?" And when Jesus goes to the tomb and commands that the stone be rolled away, Martha says again, "Lord, he has been dead for 4 days." From her perspective, the situation is beyond fixing. But Jesus simply calls out, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus walks out of the tomb. My brothers and sisters, this gospel reminds us that even when life seems broken, God can still bring life. Even when things seem beyond repair, God is still at work. And in this gospel, we see 3 things we should remember when life feels like that pop balloon. First, God strengthens us by his very presence. Jesus did come, not when Martha and Mary expected him, not according to their timetable, but he came. And that is important for us to remember, my friends. God may not act on our timeline, but he is always present. There's an old saying, God is never early, God is never late, but God is always on time. Secondly, God strengthens us by his power. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. A child once asked his father, "How big is God?" And the father answered, "God is always a little bigger than whatever problem you have. Bigger than our fears, bigger than our trials, bigger than our suffering." But the question for us is this: do we believe that? And thirdly, God strengthens us through his purpose. St. Paul reminds us in Romans, we know that all things work for good for those who love God. Then he says something even more powerful. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God. Not suffering, not hardship, not even death itself. And that is the hope of this gospel, my friends. Because Lazarus walking out of the tomb is not only about Lazarus. It points to something greater. It points to the victory of Christ over death itself. My brothers and sisters, there will be moments in life when we feel like that pop balloon on the floor. Moments when we feel broken, empty, or defeated. But in those moments, we're invited to do exactly what that little girl did. Pick it up, bring it to our Father, and say, "Daddy, fix it." And the God who called Lazarus out of the tomb is the same God who can bring new life into our very lives. May God grant us the grace to go forth renewed and rejuvenated, knowing that nothing, absolutely nothing, is impossible for our God. Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend.